This is Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready. We're about to live in your head rent-free.
Howdy there, Otterites. This is episode 244.
I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
I'm Francis.
I'm Marcus.
And I'm Cajun, and I'm back.
That's right, he's back. We're actually out at his place to record this weekend, out at the farm in the great, marvelous hills of Nelson County. Here's in Hills,
The Holy Land.
The Holy Land. We send our best to Brother Andre, who can't be with us. You know, we got 5 out of 6, though. So, anytime the Brotherhood gathers, it's a good time. We were talking about that in the show prep. So, we're going to just dive right in, folks. This is going to be a switch 'em up. We talked about last episode, if you were listening, that we were going to talk about great TV shows. We're going to pass on that one. Great short-lived TV shows. We're going to kick that can down the road a little bit. We will get back to it at some point. But it kind of has become a thing in recent days where I raised a flag and said, guys, movie franchises, and this is partly because of the Bond announcement. We'll start with that. But
it's in the news.
Yeah, it's so we said, let's just go ahead and get topical. Let's get topical, guys. Let's get current news.
That seems out of our wheelhouse.
I say that's giving me a little spilkus.
Whoa!
I don't know about being topical.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's very good. I'm telling you, you're going Yiddish on us. I don't know that you got the long beard thing though going though. You could be a rabbi. You could be the rabbi.
Well, Francis, I got a bowl on my backside if you want to get topical and help me out.
Oh God, that's right. Oh yes.
Should we put
Lance
a
the
sticker
boil.
on that? Don't use rectally.
And the Imperator, ladies
First
and gentlemen.
one, hold that thought.
That's right. That's the first of many times. That's right.
Yeah, we definitely need to get that on a button.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, we're going to talk about movie franchises today. And what's going to start us off
Best
is
movie?
And where they go wrong.
Well, potentially. Yeah, that's right. And where they go right. That's a good question. I was starting out with film franchises is where I wanted to do that. But hey.
Well, the only reason I bring that up is that, some franchises have expanded beyond film.
True.
To streaming services. And then, of course, you have, Snakes and Otters' favorite, Taylor Sheridan, and his shared world of
Yellowstone
stories.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah, it started there and moved out. Yeah, I like the idea. Hey,
Reacher is another example.
Reacher,
Reacher's
yeah.
hit it big and really
that's right.
getting
absolutely.
out there and going.
So, yeah, we're going to talk about all that sort of stuff here as we go along. But I just wanted to throw out a couple of little bitty trick questions, shall we say, here, to kind of get the pump primed a little bit.
How expensive are you for those tricks?
Oh no, I'm free, baby. It's easy stuff on this one here.
So you're not a
just a
whore,
slut.
you're a slut.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would totally live with that one. Yeah, no problem there. Can you guys tell me what is, and I'll defer to Robert because I know he knows the answer. What is the largest money-making franchise in film history today?
Well, today I would presume that would be the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
You are exactly correct. There's no question.
It's hard to beat movies that do $1 billion every time.
That's exactly
At least
right.
on the big ones.
Right. But it's complicated, as Trevor Slattery would say to us, because that's right. You talk about self-referential there, because you can count franchises within the Marvel franchise slightly different, because the Spider-Man franchise is its own franchise, but it also overlaps with this one here.
It's only because they sold the rights a long time
Well,
ago
and
and haven't gotten them back.
That's exactly where the complications come in.
Yeah, I mean, when I talk Marvel Universe, I do pretty much mean the Kevin Feige stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want.
The actual what they consider in-universe
That's
stuff.
right. That's where I'm kind of laying this out, because you can search for these. Believe me, I have done this the past week or so on longest running and most films in a franchise, and depends on how you count them. For example, what is the film franchise with the most entries in it? Anybody?
I would presume it would either be Bond or Marvel, but
Surprisingly, no.
No.
Because you got to think bigger, and I think that's
Yeah.
where this goes. Sherlock Holmes is actually number one, 107 movies.
really,
Yeah, absolutely. What's the
never would have guessed there have been 107.
Yeah, but because they've been doing it since movies
Well,
were
I
able.
get that, but that's
And,
one a year.
Yeah,
Is it
it's-
like public domain too?
well,
some of it?
that's exactly
So
right. There's
2
all
and
sorts of
3
stuff on that.
Yeah, 2 and
and
3 at a
see,
time.
but the problem is they're also counting TV series and things like that. Which
Oh well, then that's not
Oh, like the
movie
new
per
Watson
se.
that's out currently.
that's right.
It's an excellent show, by the way. I've been watching that.
That's
Watson.
yeah. Well, I mean, Elementary. We're huge fans of Elementary. We're watching through that, and
So, well, are they counting? They're not counting episodes of those as 100 part of the
no,
100.
they're not. And see, and
But still, though, when you do that, I mean that ups the
But
number
I
significantly.
would bet after the war, British studios were pumping out probably 2 and 3 a year.
absolutely, that's correct. And
Because it's not expensive to do.
that's right. And I mean, how many times have you seen the Hound of the Baskervilles done? Hell, Elementary did an episode on Hound of the Baskervilles because you kind of have to, you know. We can go a little bit deeper on that. The American version though of same character, same actor. The number one here is believe it or not is Gene Autry.
Yeah.
Yeah, 93.
Okay.
I would bet Our Gang is probably on that list somewhere too.
It would be. There's actually a British movie series that I swear I was going to write it down. I cannot remember because I'd never seen it.
Yeah.
And it's way up there. But usually, if you want to ask what is the film franchise with the same ownership, etc., and all that, the number one with regards to the longest running and the most entries is, believe it or not, Godzilla.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it started in '53 and has continued on since that time, surprisingly enough.
And the rights have been renewed for kind of the same.
That's
they have to-
that's exactly
so
right.
no
But
matter who makes it.
And
they're-
now you have the shared monster universe with the Godzilla bit,
That's-
including
and
King
that's-
Kong and so forth.
And that's how it's still going out there. And Toho, you know, the Japanese company has always been the one that's owned those rights.
Yep.
So that's kind of, if you want to get more technical, that's kind of the one that comes in. But the one that we really wanted to talk about, at least I wanted to talk about, is the Bond franchise. Because if you were to ask most people on the street, what's the longest running franchise out there? They're going to say Bond because it's still relevant
It's in our
today.
consciousness.
It's in our consciousness.
Hey, Francis, who introduced you to James Bond?
You're talking. You just spoke it. That's right. It is you.
So, quick question: when was the first Bond movie?
Well, again, it's a little complicated.
Depends on what you're
the
talking
first
about.
Cubby Broccoli one is what, 62?
62.
62.
All right, see, yeah,
Doctor
that,
No.
Prior to that, it was 56.
see,
Yeah, and there was a one-off
That was the live
Casino
show.
Royale.
Royale.
all right, that's what
and-
I'm going for.
well,
all right,
no.
so hang on.
Yeah.
So that's 69 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to say Godzilla is longer
It
because
is.
I want to say
Yeah, it
that's
is.
53.
It is exactly.
is.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is longer. But most people, if you ask them, they don't think of Godzilla. But they do
Right.
think
No,
of
but I just
Yeah.
wanted to you know.
That's right. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that was clear. That you're right. Godzilla is
Well-
longer. It is the longest running.
Not that I did research because you know me,
I was going to
Yeah.
say that.
but I just happened to know that because I was looking through the Godzilla movies a few months back because I wanted to watch all of them from the beginning.
Holy
so I found the
mackerel.
original.
Really?
It's almost impossible because you can't find all of them.
I didn't know that. You'd never said that. That would be a fun
But
experience.
that first one's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, because we've seen. I mean, and those of us now, Robert, you probably won't remember this because you didn't grow up here, but the rest of us, you remember Movies 4 on Channel 41 on Sunday afternoons?
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say, I know you. This is back in the '70s. They would always run 4 movies on Sunday afternoons. A lot of times it was the Cisco Kid reunions, but one of them was always Godzilla. So that's how I was able to watch some of the really cool cheapies, the
Right, right.
ones that were made in Japan. But for a 10-year-old kid, oh yeah, this is it. I
cool.
mean,
Very
I'm
cool.
going out there throwing my little brother down on the ground and saying, "Hey, I'm Godzilla. I'll beat you up."
So, Francis, though, but give us the nature of the big announcement regarding Bond.
Right. Well, and essentially, to give a little background on this, Bond essentially as a franchise came into being in 1962 with Dr. No, when Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman came together and formed Eon Productions and bought the film rights for every Bond book and the character with 2 exceptions. And one of which was Casino Royale because Fleming had a hell of a lifestyle and he needed money.
He had already sold it.
He'd already sold that off. That was the first book in 1953, and he sold that pretty quickly. That's how the live thing got made.
Well, and also the David Niven,
Well, that was
which was the other one
which
that
was-
wasn't done by Eon.
that's correct, and that was because those rights. Somebody says, "Well, my God, Bond is making a ton of money. We got the rights to this. Let's do it." So that's how they ended up making that one there. And in '61, they had Fleming had wanted to sell the rights, because he hadn't sold them yet. So he and a guy named Kevin McClory and Jack Whittington came up with this screenplay that they were going to sell as the
Right outside of the novels.
outside of the
he
novels.
was going to try and
Let's
make
try
a
to-
screenplay to sell,
Mhm.
and that's Thunderball.
it became Thunderball because this was in 60, and Fleming publishes the damn thing as a novel. He novelizes it. We get sued.
Yeah.
And that kind of puts that one. Eventually, he and McClory, who owned the rights to it, because he went. They lost. Fleming lost.
Yeah.
And they made a deal with McClory would get when they made Thunderball, because it's a damn good movie.
I like Thunderball.
I think it's Martin's favorite.
It's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do
So
like Thunderball.
anyway, all that being said, the real Cubby Broccoli buys everything else.
Yeah.
And in 62, Eon Productions on a shoestring budget, because getting the money for this, it was like, what? You really want to do this? All right, we'll let you try. And it makes Dr. No with Sean Connery, and it is an enormous hit. It's nothing's ever been done like this before. The character was very different. I mean, if you think about it, the entire concept of the spy, the suave super spy, is really only maybe less than 10 years old. Casino Royale begins that as we'd understand a modern spy, Cold War.
Yeah, it's a Cold War artifact.
It is, and
It really is a Cold War document.
and that's something that Fleming knew well because he had served in the OSS and things like that. So it's brand spanking new. It's fresh, and it fits right in the era of Fidel Castro and pre-Vietnam and post-Red Scare.
Yeah, kind of the
all
romance of all that stuff.
milieu
Yeah.
that we have here. Oh man, he hit the wrong button.
That's okay. We're still drinking bourbon.
That's
Word
right.
boner.
There we
There
go.
we
That's
go.
what she said.
So
But I got to reach so far for the button, and, it's just
That's what she
That's
said.
what she said.
yeah.
Well, I mean, ideally, that came out
I've been
at the
around you
height
guys too
of
long.
the Cuban Missile Crisis and that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
oh, yeah.
right at
So,
that time. Yeah. So
It was opportune.
Yeah,
it
it's
was,
Berlin
it was
Wall.
relevant.
It's all of that.
and
stuff.
it was also Kennedy loved the movie. He had
Oh,
Dr.
yeah.
He'd already loved the Fleming stories. He had spoken when he was elected, right after he was elected, that From Russia with Love, which was written in 57, was one of his all-time favorites. So the books that were selling okay all of a sudden moved to a different level because of his
Exploded.
yeah, absolutely.
Here's an interesting thought, though, I'm going to toss out there. Considering what time all this started, can't you just see the powers that be and some of the free war governments thinking, this is great propaganda. We're going to scare the shit out of the Russians and the Red Scare out there because we have these super agents.
Well, that's right, absolutely, and that's
I
that-
mean,
it
basically.
begins. That
yeah.
entire thing begins with Bond and the character and the setup that Fleming has so expertly laid out. Is it formulaic? Yeah, a little bit.
Question.
Is it a little? Yes, sir.
well, I was hoping you'd finish that thought, but all right. So when we think of Bond, we don't, or at least myself, because I'm just not as big a Bond fan as you guys. I'll watch them, but I don't go out of my way, and I've not read any of the books. But I don't think of Bond as a Cold War spy because I don't. There's no
True. Yeah.
Soviet
Well,
antagonists, right? There's
In the
well,
books,
no,
there
there-
was,
yeah,
yes.
in the
There
book.
was.
Oh, yeah.
There was.
Early
we're
movies.
talking movie
In
franchise.
the movie.
In early movies, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
See,
Yeah.
and that's where I'm going with that. Is
From
it's-
Russia with Love
it
was
start-
Okay. Well, yes,
Was
that
a
one.
huge
set in that.
starts there, but you're right. It evolves beyond that.
Yeah.
That's how it was able to catch enough fire to build the capital. And they used the first few
I mean,
books.
it turns into like supervillain type.
Yeah,
see, 'cause
Spectre.
honestly-
A cabal, basically, with
Yeah.
Spectre and so forth. I mean, made up of various other country
Right.
leaders. And,
Because honestly, when I think of Bond and the typical adversary and what have you, honestly, I think of it as a high tech 1930s gangster movie.
Interesting. Well, yeah, there's some
Yeah.
truth to that.
It,
Yeah.
think about,
International gangster
Yeah,
movie.
Right. Well, when you with the concept of Spectre, which
Yeah.
was
Yeah. So you
Spectre
have
does
to kind
that.
of think like Spectre and Schmersh, the kind of the original antagonist. Think of it kind of like Hydra in the Marvel franchise.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of hidden underneath.
It's a
Right.
boogeyman.
it is
Well, obviously, yes.
I'm glad you mentioned that because in Fleming's universe, if go back to the very basic of the books, for the first 8 books or so, It's all the Russians. Smersh, which is a real
that
thing.
many,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
They were, that was the name of their.
But they had to
their-
move. They kind of had to move away from that because McClory was the one who owned the rights to all of that piece of it.
Well, to Spectre.
To
Smersh,
Spectre.
Smersh was a real thing.
but yeah,
And
I mean,
Spectre,
but
they
that-
created that for Thunderball.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they were able to get away with it for the first couple of movies because the rights were still
Well,
a little
and,
bit in
and they were
flux.
throwing some money at McClory.
That's exactly right.
So-
But eventually, by the time the last mention of Spectre is in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and that's because the book featured them. But they were unable to use that afterwards at all.
Yeah.
And they got away with using Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever in '71. But even that, because the character was created for Thunderball, the rights, because of the legal issues, they said, well, no, you can't use either one of those. So they kind of had to reinvent themselves several times, and that's kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about is how does a franchise, to Robert's teed it up exactly right, you start somewhere and you morph based on the way the world
But
works.
we never got to the big announcement though.
Well, I know,
You didn't detail the announcement.
I didn't, because that's, you have to understand, you have to lay down that things evolve over
I don't know that you
time.
have to lay that down.
Well, I
Skip a bit, brother.
I think that's you wanting to talk about the history more than anything else.
Yeah.
Yes, but the fact is, we'll make the statement: things have to evolve, things have to change. We understand
well,
that.
and Cubby
But at least
died.
he hasn't compared it to Star Trek yet.
Good point.
Don't give me the opportunity. Don't worry.
We're
about
not.
it. If it
Well,
happens,
anyway, yes.
Don't worry, we've got to hold that thought waiting for that
I
moment.
have a taser waiting on you.
Uh-huh. What we're going to talk about, though, is the fact that because Martin is insisting we jump forward.
present day.
Present day, this franchise that has been going on for 60 plus years now, and has
With its
changed
various ups and downs.
various
Yeah,
ups
there-
and downs, changed many
Survived
times.
a studio that owns it basically collapsing. I mean, Metro Golden Mayer, MGM,
Yeah.
merged with UA, United Artists, and survived all of that and all that.
The
They didn't
thing-
own it; they distributed.
They
it.
distributed.
Yeah, that's right.
But the
Because-
thing that held it together was the fact that you had the Broccoli family.
That is exactly right. That's it's
and
critical
that's why it
to where we're going.
survived.
and their
exactly-
arch
wanted the
nemesis is
money.
the cauliflower family.
Yes.
Well-
you are. You have to give you. I tell you that.
Brussels sprout family. and
That's
the-
right. Well, they're minor. The minor Brussels
Here's a
sprouts.
little thought to dig into with all this change that's happening. How much of it is because of Daniel Craig's demand on how his last Bond movie had to end? We want to spoil nothing out there. Everybody should have seen it by now, know what happens. But
Yeah, it's.
I mean,
Well,
how
yeah.
much did that
4
throw
years old.
all this towards the direction of being sold and
I
looking
think
for a
it
new
was-
Bond and everything?
I think it was already on the way there.
Yeah.
However, I can tell you this much: that the Broccolis, and now when we say that, it starts out as Cubby Broccoli. He steps away in 1988 after License to Kill, turns it over to his daughter and stepson, Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli,
Yep.
who have been part of it's Eon
were there the
Productions.
whole
It's the
time.
same company.
Yeah.
But they had grown up on that. Michael G. Wilson actually made a cameo in every movie since The Spy Who Loved Me. You have to look hard to find them sometimes, but he's been in every one of them.
Oh, did not know that.
And it's the two of them, the genius, in my opinion, that may even be better than their father and stepfather, to be the people that hold the creative rights. Everything, nothing gets made, the way it gets made is done through that narrow sieve. And Daniel Craig and Pierce Brosnan, because both of them were the ones that made those changes. When Cubby,
Neither one wanted to hang around as long as Roger Moore did.
well, and,
Where-
Connery.
and
Yeah,
Connery.
well,
part of it was because Roger Moore was going to get dumped after Moonraker, and they brought him back. And I think Cubby just decided, it's working. Why are we going to mess with it? And
I mean, when you watch the last Roger Moore one,
yeah,
it's like this dude's 60. I mean, this is not.
Yes.
yeah,
This is not
it is
working.
truly, it is truly. You realize
Which one was the last one?
View to a Kill.
You do a kill.
Which
Is that the one with Tanya Roberts?
yes, it was. Who actually she was one of the few things I liked about that movie.
But it's funny. She had some very interesting remarks to say about Roger Moore and his manhood, shall
Yeah.
we say?
Ooh, I didn't.
Because I believe they had a naked shower scene together.
They did. That's right. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna.
Apparently,
Was
she,
it complimentary or derogatory?
she was not impressed.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Well, there's a reason he got the boot after that movie. It sounds
Well,
like.
apparently.
But they brought it back with Timothy Dalton but it never really caught fire. I think that's unfair to him in many ways.
Dalton didn't really come into his own as an actor until probably the last 10, 15 years.
Exactly. That's a
He-
comment
he
I made
aged
the other
well.
day.
Yeah.
He aged well.
Penny Dreadful. If you have not seen Penny Dreadful,
wonderful.
it is a wonderful, wonderful horror, gothic, Frankenstein, Dracula type
No, you know,
werewolf
he was
monsters.
great in Doom Patrol. He's been fantastic in 1923 as the villain.
He has really come into his self
He's
in
a,
his later
he's
years.
a
He
great
has.
later actor, and you're right.
And he's got the voice for it. He has a very, very big presence in these roles he's been doing in the last 10, 15 years.
Yes, the Time Lord president.
I was going to say, it's exactly right because
He was phenomenal.
he really was, and I think it was just, but with Cubby deciding I'm done, take it over. His daughter and son and stepson said, no, let's do this again, and that's when they brought in Pierce Brosnan. I'm not a huge fan. I think I liked GoldenEye. I'm not a big fan of everything else he did.
I was a huge fan of Brosnan's.
I think if Brosnan had been able to do the movies when they wanted him originally, but Remington Steele would not let him out of his contract to
when
do
Dalton-
them,
that's when they brought in
he would have
Dalton.
grew into it better.
Well, Brosnan proved himself to me as Bond capable with the Fourth Protocol when he
Oh
did that.
yes, I had forgotten that movie.
He was extremely cold as a spy in that,
Yeah.
and did a wonderful job.
I don't know. I thought I don't know if that was before or after, but the movie he did with Rene Rousseau.
I knew you were going to go there. That's right.
can't
the
remember the
Thomas
Thomas
Crown
Crown
Thomas
Affair.
Crown.
Yes.
Yes, the remake of
that was
Steve
way
McQueen.
before that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was his first and best serious role
Yeah,
that I was aware
He
of.
did fantastic with all that, and that
He did.
kind of laid him out on that. And it was a different era. The '90s were a very strange era, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But and Martin, I know we're taking a long way around the
Well, but I just
It would not be a Francis Way if it were not the long
Yeah,
way around.
exactly.
straight, baby.
Brosnan. I think the later Brosnan ones didn't fail because of Brosnan. He
No.
did a good job with what he was given.
Yes,
It's just some of it was not solid material.
and that's
a
a good-
repetitive. Some of
yeah,
it was
and that's
repetitive.
Yeah.
Die Another Day. His last one is considered to be possibly the worst of the entire franchise.
It's not good.
And it's not good, and it's kind of strange because
Well-
you've got Brosnan, you've got Halle Berry, who we know
I think-
is very good.
I think
Toby
Dalton's
Stevens is
were
good.
worse.
Yeah.
What?
I
I think
like
Dalton's
Dalton's.
were worse.
I like Dalton's,
Yeah, well, I mean, there were those
especially the first Dalton.
the Living
was-
Daylights. Yeah.
Living
never
Daylights.
big
I
at-
thought Living Daylights was really good.
Yeah,
I
well,
was
it
never
was
big
an,
on his Bonds.
it was an attempt to kind of take it back to the beginning a little bit more.
It was less like gadget.
That's right,
Super
a little bit more of a
techy.
serious type thing, and it was
Well,
more of it leaned into the Cold War side because this was still pre-90, so you could,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
could do
Yeah,
that.
it went.
But
went
that's
back
also
to-
when the tech started developing for a
Yeah.
common day thing and cell phones, and
Yeah.
it was actually out there in the public now. Some of the stuff that they were using was very acceptable to people to believe
Yeah.
existed.
Yeah,
Well, and for me personally, again, not having been a huge Bond fanatic by any stretch, I think by the time we got to Dalton and Pierce Brosnan, there were a lot of movies in the 80s and through the early 90s.
Yeah.
I think there's just, like there was with Marvel, there's just a lot of fatigue.
Mhm.
yeah, and they had to reinvent
And
that. And
there was a
most-
bit of a gap between Brosnan and Daniel Craig.
It's
wasn't
right.
there?
It was
How many years?
4 years,
Just
Yeah.
four?
just 4.
I
yeah,
was thinking it
'cause-
was a little bit longer.
Might be
than that.
5. Because
It was
Die Another
short.
Day, Die Another Day was like 2001 or 2,
Mm-hmm.
and Casino Royale was 2006.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you're right because after Die Another Day, we thought, okay, this franchise is over. It's dead. It's not coming back. But they realized, and I'm telling you, this is a Cinderella story that shouldn't have happened by all rights. But goes back to that genius of Barbara Broccoli in particular that says we need to do this better. And they had the control to do that. What does it mean to do a good Bond movie?
Well, the key for making the Bond character work is he has to give you the vibe that he would kill you in a moment if necessary.
The dangerous Bond. That
Yeah,
Sean
which
Connery
goes back to Connery. I mean, that was,
Hairs on the back
that
of your
was-
neck are standing straight
I
up
mean,
when you meet this fella.
it's like he's all suave and he's cool and he's all this and that, but in a moment he could just twist your neck all the way around so your eyes are looking at
Well,
your
and
spine.
it goes back to
and
the
you're
first two
gone.
movies when he.
Yeah.
You remember in Doctor No, he's sitting in the bedroom waiting for the guy to come in, and he says, "That's your Smith and Wesson. You've had your 6," and he shoots him.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, holy crap, this guy is a dangerous guy.
Mm-hmm.
You
But
don't
it's
get
cold blooded. I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's a
and-
lack
well,
of
Well, it's him.
a lack of a psychotic lack of compunction harnessed for the good of something.
Queen and Country.
Yeah.
Or it's the scene in From Russia with Love when he takes down Grant, and without he beats the snot out of him and kills him just like that.
Yeah.
That's the Bond they wanted to get back to, and
Yeah.
they realized that's what people want to see.
The Bond, the moment. This is just one little tiny moment. Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah,
He's hunting for Blofeld at the beginning,
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and he's kissing the girl in the bikini
yeah,
and says, "There's something I want you to get off your
chest,
chest,"
that's
and
right.
he's choking her with her own damn bikini.
yeah.
I mean, that's Bond.
That's
That's really Bond,
That
and that's
brutal
just something
Bond.
you couldn't see Roger Moore doing.
no, and
It's something I mean, Dalton, I could see doing it more. I couldn't.
Well, on that note, though, too, I have to say, when they brought Craig in, it took it back to what Fleming had written.
that's
He
correct.
personified what Bond was meant to be, even more than Connery.
Well,
No,
they-
that's
they-
no question.
Connery was still a little too smooth.
Yeah.
That's
well,
what-
I mean,
of
they
what
s- they
Fleming
started-
created.
but
Fleming
they
called him
stated
a
it all
blunt
over.
instrument.
You know,
Yeah,
it
that's
was a restart. It
Absolutely.
took it all the way back to Casino Royale.
Which is the first
and-
book,
which
and
is
they
the
got
first book
they got
with,
the rights.
with Bond as a new agent,
Yeah,
basically. And this is his first run out,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
and it was very close to the book. I
It
never
was.
thought it would ever be made, to be honest, because of the rights issues. But the first book was damn brutal. That
Yeah.
whole scene in the movie where he's sitting there bare ass in a seat in a chair, and they're literally whipping him to death. That's straight from the book. I said,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
"There's no way they'll ever film that," and damn, they did.
Yeah, and that's what I like so much about Craig.
It's
Oh, yeah.
Like
and he
Agent
pulled
says, it
that
really
off.
did pull
He
it
is
right
a
back to that.
dangerous son of a. And
Yeah,
that's
a blunt instrument.
I won't say Craig is ugly, but he's not that smooth, pretty boy,
Right,
He's not
right.
pretty
dazzle type.
He's not
either.
Pierce Brosnan.
yeah. And I think maybe there's the issue.
Or more when he was younger.
I think Brosnan's, I think, more the epitome of that
He is.
slick.
That slick, suave guy,
Yeah.
the handsome
Yeah.
guy that because he's not dangerously handsome.
I mean, he's a man's man.
Yeah, Bond is.
Bond
Yeah,
is.
well,
Bond
yes,
is-
the Imperator says that, but he's always had a big man crush on Pierce Brosnan.
I do have a thing for I think Brosnan, but my favorite is still it would either be Connery or, and I can't remember his name now, the guy who did the live action
Barry
first
Nelson.
one,
Barry Nelson.
Barry Nelson.
Who did a fine job, but
He did.
He was American, and
He
it
was.
They really didn't know
did
what to
twist
do
it.
with it. It was just, but the story is still essentially the same.
The story is great. It's done it. I mean, it's a live action play basically.
That's right. Yeah.
So-
and they use live guns.
That's always good.
I
the,
think so.
So the
So-
announcement is
Yes, since we have finally
Yes.
gotten to Daniel Craig, the modern announcement is
Wilson and Broccoli
Have ceded the
sold-
right. They have sold the rights.
Yes.
The creative rights to now.
thought we'd never get there.
Well, because
IP.
MGM got the distribution rights,
Mhm.
Amazon bought MGM, so they
But-
got that. They already
but-
had the distribution rights to this,
But they only have distribution rights until this next movie at MGM.
and that is exactly right because they had, that predates this agreement. Because the after they did Spectre in 15, they weren't really sure what they were going to do because Craig says, "F this, I ain't coming back. This guy kills me."
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he was injured pretty bad several times.
that's
wasn't he,
right,
the
and
gentleman?
that,
How old is he now?
52, if I remember right.
That's it.
Yeah, he's a
He's old.
younger
He's
man.
not. Yeah, he,
He looks older.
57.
57. Okay.
On March the 2nd, 1968.
Okay, there you go. So
So he's the
57.
same age as me.
Yeah, he's our age. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Can you imagine us playing James Bond? Don't even think about that guy.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be great?
Oh, you want to feel like clothes? Come on out and stay a week. I'll put you to work.
Oh, so Lord.
Ready to shovel something?
Been there, done that. That's for damn sure. But what?
So-
this is a change, a seismic change.
Yeah, Amazon now has the creative rights to the
Yes.
Bond franchise.
And that's what kind of brought us into this whole conversation of what the hell does that mean? And let me give you, before I throw this out to the guys to see what your all's thoughts are, the conversation that happened when it was originally announced. Now, we've had some clarifications since then. Who's going to be in charge? I'll let Martin talk about that. And what's it going to be? What's it not going to be? but there was a conversation had with one of the Amazon executives, of course, who basically swore himself to anonymity. But he says, all right, now James Bond is going to be The Gorge, which I think I know that at least two of y'all have seen The Gorge.
Yeah.
With
Oh, yes,
the,
yes,
the,
yes,
the
yes.
movie that
Yeah.
just dropped with Miles Teller.
I don't understand the comparison on that.
I don't either.
Well, what they're saying is it's going to be assembly lined, and it's going to look like every other streaming movie out there. They're going
That still doesn't sound like The Gorge, because The Gorge is not an assembly. I mean, it has the potential for being a multiple sequels and what have you, but
Essentially, they pretty much said the intent is this is cash cow time.
Well,
We're going to
that's
spin. We're going to spin the shit out of this.
So we're going to look at
And-
spin-off
Oh, yeah.
series on
Spin-offs.
Amazon, like
We're gonna get
Money Penny
Money
series.
Penny's gonna
and
have her own
Q
show.
series.
We
They
could do
are.
anything.
They've already announced they're going to have spin-offs that aren't going to be Bond himself, but yeah, the
right, that
other
and that's what they're
expendable
talking about. It's
characters.
going to become it's definitely going to be an assembly line.
Oh, okay. So I
let's
can see a
milk-
Q like a Pennyworth.
Let's milk
basically,
milk
but
this
it's on Alpha.
couch,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
His
cow
younger days.
until it dies. And
Yeah.
that's now. In fairness, I loved The Gorge. I thought.
Oh, yeah, it was
and I
fantastic.
and I know that at least two of you guys saw
Yeah.
it and
Oh, yeah.
really liked it. I thought. I think.
Yeah, because I mentioned it first. We took and watched it one night.
And we watched it like the next day or so, and I want to say we were talking about it, and we all watched it around the same time.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
It was.
but it wasn't Bond.
No.
It wasn't near to that level, and I guess there's what I want to explore. But
well, that's because it was a single setting and it was exploring entirely all of that. It's the kind of thing that it wrapped up to where you could leave it at that,
Yep.
but then it also had all kinds of backstory that you could really go with, and I would love to see that. And I loved it because once it finally got down,
And it wasn't a
into
straight
the-
action movie either.
No,
Yeah.
Once you got down into the Gorge, it was my kind of movie. I mean, that's the
Oh,
kind of
really?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, because it's the kind of story that I mean, it's the kind of story that has elements that I'm writing.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I never considered that, but you're exactly right because it's not the Cold War spy thing, except it is a little bit. It starts
It
there,
starts there, but that's mainly because it's the context or the setting for this weird cooperation.
right, and which hey, that is a part and parcel of this goes back to From Russia with Love, for God's sakes. The American and the Russian that should be at odds with each other falling in love. I mean, my lord, my first book is about that. And it really is a winner. I mean, Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy are at the top of their game right now. They are currently.
Hated him as Mr. Fantastic, but he's a great actor.
He's a great actor. At Whiplash, he was fantastic in Whiplash. If you ever got a
Did
chance
not see
to,
that.
you get a chance to see it, it's worth your time. J.K. Simmons is the villain in it. If you can,
Oh, excellent.
If you can even kind of call it that, but and I really like her. To me, I think she
is great.
She is either ultimately hot or she's ultimately creepy. And I can't when she's in her natural blonde hair, she looks very weird to me. But you put her in either the red hair from Queen's Gambit or the dark hair from The Gorge, and I say, oh my God, she's just amazing.
I think she's a little creepy in Queen's Gambit too, but you know,
but hotly so. I don't know. Hey, again,
That's
Hey,
kind of
hey,
like
hey.
Vanessa Ives in Penny Dreadful.
Yeah,
I
we're-
forget the actress's name.
Uh-huh.
But if you
Yeah,
see
no
her
kink
dressed
shaming.
in goth in low lighting, she's hot.
yeah,
If the light's too high, her forehead sticks way up.
yeah, yeah, and no
So she's
kink
got a
shaming, man.
five-head.
You
No, I
know,
understand. I'm bearing my soul. Hey,
Kink shaming.
Her
really?
Majesty watched it with me, and I told her
went
the
there?
same thing. I say, I've seen her in certain things, and she just is. Ooh.
it's the eyes
she
that are
was-
weird, but she's a great actress and she can be.
And she's amazingly beautiful
Yeah.
at times.
Are you
So
having to explain the chubby?
So
She wasn't chubby.
no,
No, yours.
there's a name for that in Seinfeld, and I don't recall what it is.
Oh,
No, I don't know, but get your engine
yeah,
back
I
on the right
I
track.
remember those episodes.
Yeah,
There was the one
she
who
was
kept her face kept changing,
changing
wherever he
depending
went
on the
with it.
light. Yeah, wherever she was.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, back on track.
Yeah.
Get on the correct track.
Anyway,
Let's get back to
we,
this.
we need to take a pause.
The comparison to me is what's being done basically with Star Wars.
Uh-huh.
Is spin it off into a million things.
Well,
that the stories that don't even include the original characters.
Well, that
or
is
anything.
exactly what
It's
there's
Rogue
talks about.
One, Mandalorian, and this, whatever makes them a nickel.
A
Yeah.
shared
Do it.
universe.
but that's for the online, the stuff that they're putting out on their Amazon Prime and what have you.
Yeah.
Well, that's Disney
The
Plus. but
the
yes.
agreement with the movies is there's still going to be theatrical productions.
the Bond movies
forever.
themselves. That's
Yeah.
correct.
And Broccoli and Wilson
That's right.
still have partial ownership.
They do.
Uh,
That is something
so
that
they
was not
just-
very clear
They just
at
ceded.
the initial announcement.
Yeah,
Well,
they
you know,
just ceded
I
their-
think you have to have. I think streaming services, they're butting up against some realities of
yeah.
the economics of
Yep.
streaming services.
Yep.
They have to start supporting some theatrical releases, because when you're producing your own content, you're dipping entirely and exclusively into all of your own revenue,
Mhm.
Well, that's right.
and
Well,
there's no direct return
yeah.
other than retention of existing, because most people, they may sign up for a free trial for a particular movie that is, or series that comes on a streaming service, but how often do they stay?
Well, yeah, that's the
Of course,
recidivism.
that's the whole point of a streaming service, is you forget
Well-
to cancel it if you keep the price low enough.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think theatrical movies, they're almost a must, especially for something like Bond, because they would never make any money otherwise.
This is true, but
Well, yeah, because they make a ton of money when the movies are great.
the key to this, as far as the theatrical productions go,
Yeah.
are the producers that they brought in. With
glad you mentioned that.
Pascal,
Amy
and
Pascal.
Heyman.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you've got Pascal, who was head of Sony Pictures.
Yep. She was in
She-
charge of the Spider-Man.
She was in charge of the
franchise.
Spider-Man franchises. She also did the Barbie movie, all
which-
that kind of stuff, which also leads into a serious possibility for the next Bond.
Bond meets Barbie.
And no, Tom Holland.
Barbarella.
Oh, that's right.
Tom Holland.
He's been talked about. Yeah.
With the time frame that they're talking about, Tom Holland will be 30 then.
He's too freaking short.
Well,
Well,
there's
that doesn't mean anything. I mean, look at
Downey Jr. He's got to stand on a box when he's around Helmsworth and
He's
all of them.
but he's still bigger than Tom Holland.
well,
yeah.
Since you
but
mentioned
Tom
that,
Holland's very physical though.
he is, and
He is, but
there has been discussion since some of that first started that they're saying we're not
Different
making
people.
a 20-something Bond.
Exactly. That was
Because
a requirement.
You can't, and that's kind of what the Broccoli's had said.
They did.
You have to make this guy have some experience
Mm-hmm.
by the time he reaches wherever we pick up with him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you don't get a 00 number when you're 18.
Yeah,
and
they're-
that's exactly right. We're not going that
right,
young.
we're not the Kingsman.
Well, I
That's
mean,
right.
the requirements from Broccoli and Wilson were, quote, he can be of any color, but he's male.
That's correct.
Period.
Which shut all that
Yes.
noise
and
down.
then you think of him as being from Britain or the Commonwealth, but Britain is a very diverse place.
That's right. Yeah, he's got to be British in some fashion.
fashion.
But that could be Canadian.
Exactly.
mean, but
and then
Wales,
There-
so forth, all that.
Australia.
there is the point that Bond is already a veteran. He's had the experience
exactly
in the
right.
military, and then he went over to becoming a spy.
Commander Bond to
And
go back to
that's-
the original.
And quote that Wilson said, quote, that's why it works for a 30-something.
yes.
And then the next Bond won't be in his 20s from the casting director.
That's right. Which was just announced this week.
This
as
was
we record this.
and then you've also got Heyman, and Heyman's responsible for
the Harry Potter.
the Harry Potter series and the Paddington Bear series,
That's right.
both of which were huge money makers.
That's right. Well, I
So-
mean, and it's the expanded Harry Potter, not
It's the
just
expand-
those, but
yes,
it's
no,
also
no,
the
all of
Fantastic
them.
Beasts and all that stuff.
And-
which, as a general rule, at least on the front end, was an enormous financial success.
Is he
for this.
involved in the remakes that are coming up?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes, he is, and that's one of the
Interesting.
questions: is okay, how are you going to do both?
Yeah, I was gonna say
Exactly.
that's all, because that's going to be huge.
It is,
Well-
but it's he's not a showrunner though. He's still an executive producer on that.
But there,
so.
there are other conflicts that are coming up too. One of them was I can't remember the director's name. Can't think of him offhand. Famous director.
Well, that narrows it.
Yeah, I know. I'll think of it in a little
We
bit.
have a whole series on
but
this.
also, this is going to be the first Bond series or Bond movie that's not done at the studio there in England.
In Pinewood. That's
At
right. because-
Pinewood, because Disney's already got a long-term lease on that.
Right.
for their productions.
Right, because MGM getting bought messed up all sorts of stuff because
Yeah, it did.
MGM owned Pinewood at one time. That's why almost all the Bonds were made there in some fashion. I mean, some of them are, some are on
Yeah.
location to a certain degree.
I'm not surprised Disney has that though, because Lucasfilms has done every Star Wars and other properties that Lucas has been involved with at Pinewood.
It is one of the preeminent studios in England.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so many things have been done there. But at this point now, you're right. That's going to change some of that.
Yep.
And which leads to the entire premise of this entire episode is how the hell do we go forward from this, guys? Is this a doom and gloom moment, or is this
Well,
So it took us all the way to
Studio-wise-
the break before we even got to the premise.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Well, Francis is the captain.
That's damn straight, baby.
Yeah, studio-wise, though, you've got to consider too how many states here in the United States now are offering big incentives to come film in their areas, and have actually built new studios here in the
Yes.
last 10 years. Georgia, Louisiana, South Carolina.
Everything but California.
That's right. California's the only.
And yeah, what does that say about
fact,
California? Yeah.
The new series, The Pit, with Noah Wiley, one of his things he's been spouting constantly is bringing stuff back to the California studios.
Yeah.
Right.
I saw an interview with him the other day, and there's a push now for trying to bring stuff back into
Well,
California.
that would require a change in the tax laws there.
Well,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm
And-
sure among other things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest financial reason. You got to give some incentives for that. But you're right. I think we've come to the point where we have to take a pause.
Uh-huh.
Bourbon break.
Yes, that's right.
So, Francis, could I start us off with a little something for bourbon break?
Absolutely so.
Okay, because I was going to start with something too, but go ahead. You go
Oh,
first since you.
Thank you, Robert. Two things. As Francis has been expressing in the lead up to this, it is wonderful to be back together.
Mm-hmm.
We do miss Brother Andre. It'd be awesome to have him here, but this is a good brotherhood moment, and really enjoying it. And I wanted to also a lot of gratitude for Francis, my hero. He's taken on the role of spiritual guide
Oh,
to
yes. that's-
Bjorn, and
yes.
I wanted to let him know that I appreciate
Well,
it.
I was telling him on the way out here, Bjorn and I have been emailing already this morning because it's in the
awesome.
evening in Japan. So he had some questions, and he is an amazing young man, that is for sure. And Robert, I know you'll appreciate this. He asked 3.0 questions, not 1.0 when it comes to
Nice.
the faith. He
Nice.
is really just he's already there. I don't have to take the long way around the barn, which is my way of doing things. He definitely just he goes right to the red hot center. I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll give you the short explanation because I don't have to give you the context. You've already got it." So there we go. It's been-
That's a rare thing.
yeah, it is. It is. It's,
So I think I'm going to start calling you Monsignor Francis.
Oh, please don't promote me. Oh, God. But I thank you for that. Yes.
So, Martin, when are we going to show up for your bath at the church?
We can do double baptisms.
Uh-huh.
Well, Bjorn has been baptized.
Oh well.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
he was baptized at the church where
Oh, the little
Martin-
Presbyterian church.
uh-huh,
Little
where Martin
Presbyterian.
and Mrs. Martin were hitched. He was baptized there, and he's gotten the documentation of such because that church no longer exists.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. They
Well, the
closed
building's
up,
still there. It's just not
That's
the
right.
same church.
Right.
sold the building
congregation.
off, and the congregation aged as the demographics of the area changed. And
Yes, we are quite familiar.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
But he has some. Mrs. Martin located some kind of little, I don't know, might be the equivalent of daycare graduation certificate.
Well,
but
it at least proves that it happened.
it happened.
A-
Yes, it did happen.
And knowing the denomination, it was done validly. In fact, that was one of his questions because and Robert, you'll really appreciate this. He says, "Well, it says that was baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Is that a problem?" I said, "No, we're okay. We're okay. Stay calm, Los Angeles. It's all good." So that was his question this morning
Yeah.
that started the conversation.
Well, I appreciate that he's already gone into Trinitarian questioning
Well,
there.
he and I had that conversation. I had an hour and a half Zoom conversation with him a couple
Oh,
weeks ago.
phenomenal.
Yeah, it's all right. And he initiated it. And Martin told me it was going to come, but he emailed me, said, "Hey, can we, and we took a little while to get it all hooked up, but yeah, we had a great conversation." So, yes, and I told him this morning, the last email I sent him, it says, because there's a local parish there in Tokyo that is close by to him and does services both in Japanese and English. And that's where he's going to, because you have to to enter the church, you go to your local parish, and that's what he's going to do. So I said, keep me apprised of the journey. I want to walk with you on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you,
Absolutely. You need to
Francis.
keep us all informed. there.
Exactly, and through myself, I shall share that with the brotherhood.
He sets his own direction.
Yeah, and that's totally cool. You know, but he is well informed. He is well informed, and he's done that on his own. You know, there was nothing that not really. I asked him what his story was, and I won't go into all that. But yeah, it got him there. You know, he reached. I'd love to have him on the show at some point and say, tell us your spiritual journey, which I think would be a really cool episode in and of itself.
He was encouraged to seek it out on his own.
Yeah, and he did very, very well. But this is Bourbon Break, actually, so we probably.
But
should-
Robert,
Well, hold on,
please, I
I-
wanted to cede my floor time to Robert.
Yes. So, listeners, you guys don't know this yet, but of course the Brotherhood
Yes.
does. Last weekend,
Oh, yeah.
as we record this, my dog of almost 13 years, just 12 days shy of his 13th birthday, died at home. Bosco the dog, and that was a very emotional time for all of us.
He's made appearances on the show.
He
many
has.
times,
We've
yeah.
talked about
Oh,
him on the
yes, he
show many
has.
times. Yes. He is.
He loved being in the atrium in the sun with
He
us.
did. He did. He loved the atrium, I think, more than any other spot, especially when Mrs. Robert was working out there. He barely left her side those times. Anyways, he died at home. Didn't have to take him in to have him put down. When he went, it was pretty quick. So let the Brotherhood know, and almost immediately, Cajun offered up a spot out next to Daisy, Mrs. Cajun's dog. And
Yep.
so the next day, last Sunday, we brought Bosco out, and I also brought the ashes of Dittos and Lady.
Two previous dogs.
And yeah, my two previous. I've only had 3 dogs since I was the age of 11, and not having owned my own place until about 7 years or so
Not including
ago.
the ones you dated.
Not including those.
We haven't put them down yet.
No, you may want to bring your microphone a little closer though.
Sorry.
So Cajun was nice enough to dig the hole. We placed Beckett and I placed Bosco in. I put the containers of the other 2 with him and covered him up by hand. Cajun helped with that, which is a good thing because, man, I was tired when we
Felt
were
that
doing
one, didn't you?
I did. But I just want to say my eternal gratitude to you, Cajun, for offering that up because that was we hadn't really considered what we were going to do other than possibly also doing his ashes. But at some point we knew we needed to do something with the 3 of them. But we are eternally grateful for that, and I haven't had a chance to go see it yet. But
Yeah, because we're out
at
here
some
today,
point,
but
go
we
take a
will all go and bow our
Yes.
heads. And,
yes,
and-
but
Glad to be
Bosco.
able to.
Bosco was a good dog.
He's a
As
good
I've said many
boy.
times, he was an asshole sometimes, but he was still a good boy.
Oh,
He was.
Well, him and Daisy will be getting along together well.
Yep.
They'll
It's
both be seeing who can top who's the biggest ass.
well, yeah. It's losing a dog you've had that long is hard when they're family. Inside dogs tend to become family. I think more so than the outside dogs, and I've always had inside dogs. Always been a dog person. The fact that I know he's someplace where I can come and visit is really nice, and I do appreciate that. Brought him a bottle of Wild Turkey Rare Breed because, as I said to Cajun, he is a rare breed among men.
Much appreciated.
So thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, gentlemen, what are we drinking today? I'm happy to go first if we
Go ahead.
if we want to, because
Yes,
I have
that'd
to
be fine.
actually take a quick grab here.
Ooh, Francis.
Yeah. Oh, for God's sake. I swear, if I didn't set that one up, I don't know. Clyde Mays Straight Bourbon Whiskey is what I'm drinking today. 92 proof, and I believe Robert, you're drinking the same.
And
I
so
am.
am I, actually.
Oh, you are. This is
okay.
served up by Mr. Cajun here, since we're out here in the Great Hills of Nelson County. What do you think, guys?
It's sweet to me.
It is. Very sweet on the nose, surprisingly. You don't always get that with the sweet bourbon, but it is. It's sweet. Did not have much of. I sometimes get a little bit of a burn that's almost a heartburn, depending on what I've had to eat beforehand.
Yeah.
With some bourbons, did not have that at all with this. It was very smooth from the get go.
It's smooth. It's not real complicated, though.
No.
But it's got a nice flavor to it. It's a nice sipping, enjoyable one without much bad bite or anything.
great
Right.
finish. I'll give you that. It didn't. Now mine is well bloomed because I poured it before we started the episode. And you guys, you know how far we've gone already, so yeah, that's a good 30 minutes plus. And
49.
yeah, so we've took it a little while. Had the huge ice ball that Cajun provided. It's about half gone.
Cajun and his huge
My
balls.
big ball is half gone.
I knew I was teeing that one up. I mean, it was just kind of let that one go.
We
get
can't
that
talk
out of
about
there.
Cajun's big balls on a show. Is it really a show?
Well,
I mean, they're famous from North America to Mexico.
they're great. They're great to lick on, or even just nibble or nuzzle.
Oh, for God's sakes, guys! You just send.
Skip a bit,
going,
brother.
Francis. Keep going. Please keep
yeah.
talking.
You didn't even give that one a hold that thought.
Yeah, if
doesn't
you
rate
keep,
that.
if you keep talking, then they don't get to.
Okay. Well,
Oh, you think they can't overtalk him?
Yeah, this is a good point.
We had mutual practice, grandes. Oh, that's what she said.
all right. Well, all right, Martin. What are you drinking? Since we've.
So I poured some of the Faithfully Crafted.
Oh, excellent.
Yes, I'm glad you did that. I was going to, but I didn't this time.
Well, you have to do it next time.
I will. Yeah.
It's really good stuff. Now, again, similarly, I let it sit a bit before I got off. Got some of it in me, so I didn't get any kind of harshness at the beginning. It's 90 proof, so it's not a high proof bourbon. I feel almost like it's got a little bit of cherry candy flavor to it, so there is a little bit of sweet. But I like this. Very smooth drinking and just
Made by our good friends at Log Still Distillery,
Log Still Distillery,
which is literally a stone's throw from where we sit
Yeah.
as we speak.
We can see the water tower from the
That's right.
backyard.
famously in partnership with the Archdiocese of Louisville.
That is correct.
Faithfully
Yes.
Crafted, and this I have not opened my bottle, so this is my first snort of it, and it's very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable.
I have
You
not-
see
I
the
have two-
glass is empty, so
I have 2 bottles at home. I have not cracked them yet, but I have had it. Cajun and I came and went out with our missuses to Log Still for Valentine's Day. They had an event out there, and they had that on available. So I had some there, and I was exactly what you say. I was very pleased with what I had with regards to that. Cajun, you would agree. You had the same thing, didn't you? I'm
Yes,
sure you
yes,
did.
and me and Uncle Tommy had also already opened
Oh,
the bottle
Uncle
at
Tommy.
the
You'd already,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
'Cause you tasted it very quickly. Yes.
Yeah, so it's some really great stuff.
In fact, Uncle Tommy liked it so much, he said, buy me a case of it.
And-
Wow. Were you even able to get a case?
Yeah, there's 2 cases sitting next to you.
Yeah, well, because it is limited edition. I mean, and you can only get it in 2 places. You can't order it, folks. Sorry. You can get it either at the Log Still Distillery, which, like I say, is behind us, or at the Log Still restaurant in downtown Louisville by the bridge. It used to be where Barano's by the bridge was, but Log Still has created. I've not been to the restaurant. I hear it is fantastic, though. It is my intention eventually to get down there.
what's
Oh,
it
yeah.
called? Boiler House or something like
Oh
that.
gosh, you would ask me that. My memory's good, guys, but it ain't that good. I don't remember it exactly because I've not been there.
It's not Star Trek related. He doesn't remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's,
That's slightly unfair.
Only slightly.
Only slightly. Well, I mean, I know my Marvel comic history too.
Well, that's true.
I mean,
That's
you
true.
know that. That's
Please give our best regards to Uncle Tommy as well.
Oh yeah.
Yes, most definitely.
Him and my aunt have been in New Orleans this past week or so, living it up. I'm not giving him any regard.
I was going to say he's
He
probably.
didn't even invite us down.
You can say it's from us though.
That's right. Well, he's eating well, but then again, we'll be eating well today.
Speaking of Nolans, looks like Mrs. Robert and I will be joining you.
Oh, that's
at
fantastic.
ButcherCon.
Great.
ButcherCon is early September.
It's going to be a party.
That's
Yep.
right, absolutely. So we're looking forward to that. With trust me, we will be talking much about that in
Yes.
the days afterwards because this,
So I'm on my own for Bourbon Fest then if I want to go.
that is correct, sir. That's
Everybody
right.
else
We'll
will
be
me.
out of town.
be in New Orleans.
Brother Andre would probably go with you. He's not been. So
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
Oh.
Yeah,
he's indicated that he would probably enjoy that.
With someone loaning McKilt.
I'm
absolutely.
sure. Oh, are you kidding?
Oh, on the note,
I
Monks
think he has
Road
one.
Boiler House is
Monks
the name
Road
of
Boiler
their
House.
There you go. That's
restaurant
right.
downtown
Boiler House.
Louisville.
Should have remembered that.
My memory was right. Okay.
All right. Well, let's.
So, Imperator, did you get to sniff any of the?
I did. It's a smooth bourbon.
Which one?
Oh, the
Clyde's.
Clyde. Okay, Clyde.
it's a smooth bourbon. It's not a high wheat. It's not very sweet.
Really? Cajun, I
It
thought it
was
was
very sweet to us.
I thought it was sweet, but
but-
I almost get a honey peach
That-
off of it.
I could see
Yeah,
that. I
well,
could see that.
but
Yeah.
It was bottled and everything done in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. so it's going to probably have a higher corn content than.
Wait, was the corn grown? Because I thought that was a Kentucky bourbon. Was it not?
No, it's Lawrenceburg, and almost everything.
Because not everything bottled in somewhere else is.
Well, this is true.
distilled elsewhere.
But Lawrenceburg is pretty much. I mean,
There's-
it's corn.
They do
It's
a lot of corn distillery
it's
there, yeah.
very. I mean, most of your whiskeys that come out of there are almost 100% corn. We're real hard on our corn in middle Indiana and southern Indiana.
Straight bourbon whiskey is what it says on the,
Yes.
on there. It does not differentiate beyond that.
Yeah. I mean,
So I do not, as usual, the Imperator is spot on.
yeah. I think it's most likely, judging from that, I think it's a high corn. I'll have to look up the mash bill or something on that, but
And corn done right can have a nice sweetness to it.
it
too.
can have some sweetness to it. It's not that weeded kind of sweetness that you
Right.
get with a red wax.
Makers.
Thank you, makers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Red wax.
Yeah.
But no, it seems rather nice, smooth, not overly complex. But
This would not be a bad bourbon to introduce somebody to.
Oh no. It's a
No,
good-
not
it's
at
a
all.
good-
Yeah.
It's a nice.
I remember the price point was like under $50, I think, for that.
I think that's about
It's
right.
been a while since I bought that bottle, so I couldn't really tell you for sure.
Speaking of introducing somebody, just a quick aside. So the one of the guys that I work with, he's a younger guy. He's a millennial, and he asked me for a recommendation to try a bourbon.
Oh,
Okay.
And so I gave him a few to try, and he picked 1792
That's a good one.
Good place.
and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
a very
good.
good bourbon.
So-
That's right.
He's a guy who does his own beer occasionally and makes his own wine. He usually gives that stuff out at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this is really his first foray into bourbon as something to drink for himself. So
We've not drunk 1792 in a long time on the.
it has
on the
been quite
show.
some time.
Yeah, so that
I
might-
think we might have had one of us might have had some of the 1792 full proof that I've got.
possibly
my
It's-
place,
Even that's
but
been a while. Yeah.
It would have been if not last January, maybe the January before.
Yeah, 2 years. Wow, that's yeah.
Maybe. Well, no, because it had to have been last January. Because Gajan, you joined us in July of 23, right?
Sounds right.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so I think maybe last January, about a year, maybe.
Okay.
Take a little. But that's also a very good one. Of course, being a little higher, being full proof, it's got some kick to it.
Right. Amen to that.
Anyways,
All right. Well, let's circle back to our movie franchise discussion here, if we can remember where we left off. I suppose.
I think we were saying that basically this is all going to suck.
No.
Well, that was the premise that started this whole thing because when I heard that quotation, and Martin in his usual curmudgeonly pessimistic attitude saying this is all going to suck, I'm thinking this is worth exploring. This is
why?
worth-
What is your
Why would
premise
it-
for
They're going
the
to super
suckiness?
water this down, and we're going to get the Adventures of Q as a series, and a
There's your
money-
Trek side.
You know, a
Sorry.
money,
Yeah,
a money penny movie, and you know,
I would
the
watch,
inner workings of MI6, and
I
it's
would
just
watch
not-
Moneypenny. This latest
the
Moneypenny,
current
I just love
actress.
her.
Yeah, the current actress Naomi Harris
Naomi's
is
just
very,
wonderful.
very
well,
beautiful.
but bears she essentially, other than the name, bears almost no resemblance to the character as created because that was very, you might say, I don't want to say misogynistic, but it was certainly very sexist.
Yeah.
It was because Lois Maxwell, who did a fine job, she was in so many of those early movies.
Oh yeah,
She was essentially the unrequited secretary,
yes.
and which has absolutely no depth. What
None.
little there was, she brought to it by doing it over the time.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, really? But,
But-
all that being said, this is a reboot, folks.
Yes.
This next one, so they're not going to use the same characters. They probably deliberately won't.
I'm kind of disappointed they did not do because this is what Daniel Craig wanted. He wanted to do a passing of the baton to the next 007, right?
well,
And they decided not to do that.
They did it sort of kind of in the last movie, because and I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm really not. they Bond has retired at the beginning of that. He's kind of like not
They've
doing
assigned his number to another agent.
Yes.
which
Which
and
made
this,
for some, in movie jokes when somebody would say 007 and two people would turn around to look.
well, and they deliberately did this, and this is kind of like your representation type thing. They say because a lot of people say, well, you need a black woman in this role, so that's what they cast was this quote as Barbara Broccoli would say, we're sending in this beautiful black woman who is so very, very good at what she does. And it was meant to be, shut up about making Bond a woman. That's what they said, is stop that. We'll give you a little bit of this.
Yeah.
But Bond is not going to do that. We're not going to have a Jane Bond because that stuff has been all over the internet
It had been.
since 2015.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, since Craig says, I don't really like this so much. Well, it must be Jane Bond. We must, and of course, you realize that is the most tone deaf response, as Broccoli and Wilson would say, because Bond is very specific. And if you want to do that, but it ain't going to be Bond.
No, make a new character.
And it's been done 1,000 times
But that's the
on
thing.
other things, and it never catches fire.
Almost the desire for the representation almost never comes in the form of new characters. And I will grant them this. Doing new characters with a more diverse range of people is a much bigger gamble than replacing an existing white male.
Or repurpose
However-
a current character. Say Moneypenny.
Right.
Would she just be a secretary, or would she be somebody who's been in the military, had specific training, and is
Exactly.
actually M's bodyguard too at the same time, and
yes.
nobody realized it?
That was
She's an
part of-
obvious disguise sitting there in the
Right.
open.
That was entirely
Then
the
move
point.
her up a
Oh,
row.
yeah.
It's entirely the point that
And-
that they did that is to
and-
bring in that character to give some kudos to those who were pushing
Yeah.
for that, saying
But-
we can do that, but it ain't going to be Bond.
Right.
But
And
but Naomi brought. She turned the Moneypenny character. She made that her own. She really did.
She did, absolutely.
And she has
nothing like it
she
was
has-
originally
She has the
created.
gravitas as an actress.
Yeah.
To do
well,
that.
she also has to be given a script to work with.
This is true.
And that's part of it.
That's,
They did,
yeah.
they
that's
did, they
Broccoli
did.
and Wilson
Yeah,
knew
they-
that. They knew
made
how to,
Oh, yeah.
something with
to
the
do
role.
that. And that's that going back to that constant evolution of this IP that has enabled it to survive. You don't stick with what you did. I mean,
Well, and I think this discussion is worth continuing in the broader context of what this show is supposed to be, which is about franchises in general.
right.
So, obviously, the one that most of us and many listeners, of course, are going to be very familiar with is the Marvel franchises.
That's right. Number one.
So, in the comics, for a while there, Marvel and DC did as well to a certain extent, but Marvel really doubled down on it. They were moving older characters
Yep.
either out of the limelight entirely and sidelining them into supporting roles, or they were just redoing them and or putting new people in their place as a minority character, like Riri Williams as Ironheart,
Right.
a young black teenager who apparently is smarter than Tony Stark and Tony Stank.
Never letting
Ne-
that one
yeah,
drop.
never letting that go.
Yeah.
And built her own Iron Man suit in her garage.
No, with no support system, nothing.
No
just-
support
just
system,
doing
no.
it, just
Yeah.
doing
I mean,
it.
to be fair, Tony Stark built his in a cave.
Yeah, but as they said in the first movie, nobody else is Tony Stark.
True. Well, apparently she was.
Apparently she
And
was.
then there
he
was
had help in some parts.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
And then there was Lunella, Moon Girl.
Oh, for Lord's sakes, yes.
I forget what her last name is supposed to be. She was like 12, not even 12. She's like 10 or something.
and she's
and she's
smarter,
smarter
than
than Reed Richards, yeah.
Sorry.
Wrong. Another example of that.
Of
And
totally
just-
missing the point.
and so there's lots of these examples, and almost every one of them has bombed as the lead. She was never successful the way Tony Stark as Iron Man was. The Falcon as Captain America happened in the comics first. That did not go over well, partially because there was also a very political element about that, and I think that really turned a lot of people off to begin with.
About the story itself.
The story, well,
right.
yeah, so I understand. Well, if you look at the Disney one too, Ray is probably the ultimate Mary Sue.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons.
Again, because we want because if you look at Star Wars, Princess Leia and Aunt Beru, they were the only two women in the entire original movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
That's amazing when you think about it.
Well, yeah.
and I totally get that. Hey, representation is a fine thing, but you can't retroactively impose it. And it's
Well, you can't.
but the problem is every time
well-
they try to create something new, it bombs even worse than to try and rework something.
And that is part of the problem. So I understand the whole desire. Let's make a black woman the next James Bond, but it doesn't fit the profile.
That's
Well,
right.
They made the black woman the next Black Panther.
They
Yeah.
did. However,
I mean,
but
that
with
seems to have went over fairly well. I mean,
in the comics, though, there is historical precedent for that because
yes,
it
back
is
through the
a
generations.
yeah, it is a
no.
and it somewhat inherited, mostly inherited thing. Although it can be taken by trial, like it was shown in the Black Panther movie. So and that did happen a while ago. But again, she was part of the family and all that.
The family, yeah, it was.
Well,
It wasn't too. It
But
wasn't.
it wasn't as forced, and there was precedent for it.
right. Yeah,
Well,
'cause it's a 10-point.
And plus with
course correct, but not a completely 180.
plus with the death of Chadwick Boseman, they did not want to recast T'Challa.
That's
which-
right.
Yeah.
That-
And that
get
has
that.
its positives and negatives either way. I mean,
Yeah, I wish they would have, just because Shuri, I think, is better as her own character as opposed to the Black Panther. I like her as her own character.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
they did recast, Rhodey from the very beginning. Of course,
Yeah.
that was because
But
it
he was
the beginning.
still a African American, just like he is in the comics.
That's correct. And
Now, if they had made him white or any other nationality, that there would have been a hue and cry over that.
well, yeah, that's
And
right.
honestly, I think that would have been appropriate because I think that as Rhodey bringing, they don't do it a whole lot in the comics, but they do some. He brings an element that is missing from, rich white Tony Stark.
Well, you're right, and Rhodey was his own great character anyway, and they're
Yes.
bringing in an established character that has a backstory, that has fandom, that has recognition value.
And I think that's a big key in
I
what
think
makes these
exactly
characters
right.
work is
Uh-huh.
they're no matter what they are, there's a story, a real story.
Yeah.
It's not just that Stark is rich and a super great inventor. It's also he's got this piece of stuff moving towards his heart originally. And the original story was, he has to invent the armor. He didn't want to invent the armor. He had to invent the armor. That's what's keeping him alive.
And that's Stan Lee's original genius.
yeah,
that-
and that,
that-
that's what
And then
was,
all the self demons he had to fight also.
right.
Which
And Dr.
Robert Downey Jr. brought real life experience to those same demons into his
Exactly.
role as a
Exactly.
Doctor Strange was the same way. It's essentially that same story. The guy that's the arrogant top of his game is taken down and has to become something new.
Yeah.
And Peter Parker's the same way. He
And
was.
it worked. I mean, that was the genius of that original Marvel stuff in the '60s. Ditko and Lee
They were
and
the
all
characters
the
were
crew.
real.
Yeah,
That's
there
was
was
their claim to
something
fame.
to them.
that their competitors didn't
that
have.
you didn't have, they were the reluctant hero.
Mm-hmm.
They were forced into this role, and how do they cope with that and still be a real human?
and their backstory.
And when
means
Marvel,
something. It's not
when
always
Marvel
a reset.
moved away from that in these other characters, that's why that stuff bombed. It's like, but there's no there there.
Well, yeah,
Well,
there's
there's
no
nothing to
reason to
this.
care about the character.
Yeah,
I think the advantages you've got with Bond, though, are he's got no real. I mean, all the recruits for MI6 are orphans.
Yeah, and then they state that in Skyfall,
Exactly.
which has
And-
always been a thing, but it's never been stated until then.
Yeah, and then you've got the fact that it's just all these guys are military service.
Yeah.
They're recruited in their 30s.
And that's
per
a very
se.
British thing.
Yes.
SAS killers. I mean,
And-
Well,
basically is what it
They
is.
are subsumed into the role of Bond.
Yes.
And that, I think, is one of the genius aspects of the series, and the whole idea that there have been multiple. I know this started
yeah.
out as a way to have headcanon, to have multiple actors being James Bond, but it's a brilliant way of doing that to tie all of this stuff together.
Oh, yeah.
That Bond, you assume this persona,
Exactly.
and yet you can still bring your own attributes
Yes.
to it.
Yeah.
I mean,
which has kept the franchise able to
Yeah.
reinvent itself, similar to Doctor Who.
and
You know,
Yes,
you, you can still have this
Only
telltale
less
s-
campy.
Well,
Yeah.
right.
Kill or need it.
But-
Bring your own personality.
Yeah. Although
well,
you
I
know,
don't, I don't know about less campy. More
the-
was
well, more was
War was pretty campy.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. But in general,
sometimes
Yes.
it was fun.
But
But-
that's
yeah.
some
Right.
generational there too, and
Oh, yeah.
sometimes they wasn't working with the best of scripts either back
This
in
is
those days.
true.
That's- They were kind of pushing out that cookie
Yeah.
cutter
Moonraker.
stuff.
Well,
You
yeah,
know, that's just oh my
Which
gosh.
ironically,
Whatever.
I mean, that was a big cash grab. And ironically, we were talking at the beginning. That's the movie that Cajun and I saw together.
Yeah.
The first Bond.
I was excited to
Your
watch
first
that.
Bond. I'd already known Bond well.
You knew Bond, but you'd never seen his movies before.
Yes, I had.
When did you? On TV?
Yes.
Okay, all right, possibly
Yeah,
so.
see,
You're right.
Moonraker.
Yeah, all the Sean Connerys they used to play on Sunday nights every so often.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know,
on
because
32, I think it was.
it did, but I was watching those after that. Maybe it did some of that before too.
Yeah, they did it before that too.
Yeah.
Uh,
See, for me, Moonraker, I was excited to see that because you know I was a big space shuttle guy.
Yeah.
And then when I saw what they did, it was like, oh my god, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
That's right. And it was
Yeah, it
a
wasn't great.
huge, terrible cash grab.
It was.
And I get it.
And probably some of the biggest special effects in a Bond movie.
It certainly was.
Yeah.
Well, you have
Up to that point,
One of the things that just a little bit of a backstory on that. Harry Saltzman left after The Man with the Golden Gun because he got in financial trouble, so he had to sell out. So the movie right before this, which is almost a cookie cutter of it, The Spy Who Loved Me, went in a completely different, over-the-top direction.
Yes.
It was an attempt to reinvigorate the franchise, which had gotten stale. And they did, but it took it in a very strange direction. So this Moonraker was kind of like, how much bigger can we make this one?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Star Wars is making a gazillion amount of
Well,
money.
and you know that's
Let's go to space.
it's interesting you mentioned that because starting with the late 70s from 77 on,
Yep. And that's when Spy Who Loved Me came out.
yeah. So it's interesting because if you think back 20 years prior when Bond started,
Yeah.
the blockbuster was defined much differently because you know that was Ten Commandments.
Yeah, that's Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur, The Greatest Show,
Uh-huh.
all that kind of stuff. Again, you know, all
Chuck
Charlton
movies.
Heston. Yeah, that's what we always think
That's
of.
where we go to, yeah.
But you know, it was a different. It was a spectacle,
Yeah.
but it was a spectacle in the sense of scope.
Oh, yeah. Well, Spartacus is a good example of that. too.
Spartacus, yes.
That's a great one.
But when we get to the 70s and really up until today, the spectacle is visual almost entirely.
Oh, yeah. It's not
Yeah.
story. It's,
There's no story.
Right. I mean, even if you look at the Star Wars movies, you look at the Marvel movies. Hell, you look at the Lego movies. That's its own franchise.
Well, you know,
Even
yeah.
spanning not just Star Wars, but the Lego
yeah.
Batman,
Well,
all the different ones.
a good
It is a
example-
visual
a
spectacle.
good example of that outside of a franchise is the movie Titanic, which made
Yes.
gazillion amounts of money, and it was about the ship sinking.
Yes.
I mean, yes, it was about
kind of hard to bring that one back.
yeah, that's right. Just
That's
you
true,
don't
yeah.
get enough- Hey, Raise the Titanic, anybody? Clive Cussler.
I
Uh-huh.
I read that book in like 79
Oh,
or
I
80.
read
I
all of
loved
the
it.
original ones before he
yeah.
died. I mean,
Yeah, Cussler was an amazing,
That was a fantastic
amazing
book.
guy, and
he wrote a lot of good material.
that's right.
I mean,
Completely implausible, but wow, it was fun. Even
Well,
though it
you
was
know,
fun.
at the time that he didn't know that nobody knew that the ship was not in one piece.
yeah, sure. It's just, hey,
Or that it was as deep as it was.
it was fun. I mean,
Yeah, Sahara was not a good choice to try to take and promote the Dirk Pitt franchise.
oh
going
yeah, I
forward.
forgot
Yeah.
about that one.
Well,
Yes,
I did like the movie though.
Yeah.
Oh, if for no other reason than what was the guy's name who played Dirk Pitt?
Oh, you're gonna have to look.
Richard
that-
Jordan.
Richard Jordan. That's right. Absolutely.
Yes, Richard
yeah.
Jordan. Love him in
But he
anything.
was-
The Titanic.
Yes, Raise the
Raise the
Titanic. Yes.
Titanic.
I was gonna say that wasn't him in Sahara.
No. Raise the Titanic.
Yeah, and it was a. I didn't mean to go off on a rabbit hole, but we do that around here. But it does kind of go back to what you're saying is the viewing public's tastes and expectations have evolved and
Oh, yeah.
changed. And there are certain watershed moments along the way. Bond is a good way of looking at the spectrum because it's survived because it has seen these trends and adapted accordingly. Always successful? No, but enough to keep moving.
Well, I mean,
Well-
Bond's big turning point is the Robert Ludlum series,
Hunt for Red October.
No, no,
Oh
no,
no,
no.
the Born Identity.
Born. Yes,
Bourne.
the
Oh, yeah,
Bourne
Ludlum,
series.
yeah. Well, that's what I think you're
When,
exactly
when
right.
Bourne came out,
it
that's
was a-
when like Wilson and Broccoli were like, "Oh, holy crap!
That's what we
We've
should
got
be
to
doing.
we've got to completely retool this."
And see, and that was done. That's when they realized what they were doing with Pierce Brosnan ain't working.
Exactly.
Because that's essentially
Invisible Cars ain't it?
well, that's Roger Moore 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
and it just didn't work, and they realized that's where it's at. That's what people want to see.
well,
Even-
I think that, and maybe this is true before you get to Bourne and other things, but maybe even starting with say something like the Terminator, where
yeah, I would.
there
say
are consequences for the main characters, for the heroes. It's one of the things that we talk about in our writing all the time is there has to be consequences. Your hero cannot make it from the beginning of the book to the end unscathed.
That's right.
That was one of the
Yeah.
things that I mentioned to you in Red Moscow.
Right.
Is that John was not getting through it. He was getting through it too easily.
Right, absolutely, and I changed it in many ways. So he has an arc.
Right.
He's a different person because
Well,
of
and
this.
not, but I mean, just physically. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
it made it much better because it made the danger believable. Whereas when you look at a lot of
Nobody
James-
wants to marry Sue.
right,
It's-
or
but it's
what do
easy.
they call the male version?
Marty Stew.
Yeah, Marty Stew.
There's a
Harry
couple of them,
Stew.
yeah.
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 We're the same thing. In a way, I think Bond had some of those elements because, I mean, he's the good guy. He's going to win, but
You're
I don't remember ever
very
feeling like he was
indestructible.
truly
Yeah.
in danger.
well, and raising a good
Well-
point because a lot of the criticism of the franchise in particular is the fact that James Bond never changes.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's there's a reset button. Daniel Craig did a pretty good job of actually giving him
Oh, yeah.
a arc from beginning to end, and that's
Yes.
I think Barbara Broccoli's genius.
Well, I think that's understanding the changing needs of
That's of
Oh,
of-
yeah.
of the
Well-
medium. Because when you look at television starting in the '90s, was the first place this happened with Babylon 5
That's right.
and Deep Space Nine,
That's right.
where a story was told over multiple seasons.
That's right.
and it was a cohesive story.
And
And-
everybody grows and changes,
They
and
grow
is
and
very
change.
Well, yeah.
different at the end than they were at the
But-
beginning.
And you start seeing this in other places, whether it be television or movies, where the reset button is no longer hit. And I think that's part of what we expect now with the things we consume.
Marvel's a great example
Yes.
because
Marvel's a great
one,
example.
from Tony Stark and Iron Man until Endgame, for just lack of a better term. It's an enormous arc. It's
Yes.
in many
It is.
respects it is
But-
Stark's story, but
It
it's
is
not only his story.
23 movies of, I don't know how many characters all total, but there's probably more than 100 characters that have a serious role throughout all of them.
Yeah, and
And-
most of them have a true arc.
There's an arc, there's growth. Certainly, all of the main characters,
Yeah.
they
how-
have a story that
Yeah,
gets
how does
fleshed
Tony
out.
Stark go from being a douchebag to the man who saved the universe?
Well, that's
Right.
exactly right,
But
and that's an
see-
interesting concept right there.
But I
That's a
think
good
How does,
example.
how does Steve Rogers go from being a scrawny kid in Brooklyn to an old man sitting on a park bench,
Yeah.
looking back on his life?
But I think Amazon saw that that's what we're going towards, and look at the producers they hired.
Well, that's what I'm hopeful
you've got,
for.
You've
yes.
got the woman who was head of Sony, did all the Spider-Mans and a number
Yep.
of those things in that arc. Then you've got the Harry Potter series,
which is
with the other one,
essentially a story
which
of
is
growth.
a huge
Yeah, I
storyline.
I think the Harry Potter guy is more indicative of that.
Yeah, because it's literally a coming
Because
of
the
age
Spider-Man,
story.
the Spider-Man
Yes,
arcs really, there's no
but-
change in the sense other than it's following stuff that's in the comics.
I-
There's,
I
there's
agree,
not a
but
whole lot there.
she was still. I mean, at Sony Pictures, she
But I mean,
did a
she's
whole
used to-
bunch of stuff. She,
Yeah.
Right.
she's used to.
She's working with multi.
Well, she's working with billion-dollar pictures.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
not only
Well,
the Spider-Man,
not Spider, but I mean, and your Harry Potters, same kind
Well,
of
yes,
thing.
and it's a huge franchise. That's
And-
right.
And for depending on the director, and there have been calls for Christopher Nolan, who is tied up right now.
honestly,
with a
I'm
movie.
mixed on him.
I am too.
I
think,
am too, but
I don't think. I think been there,
there
done
are
that.
but there are a number of other directors too.
Well,
Sir Steve McQueen is one.
Nolan, Zack Snyder, almost anybody that's done a DC thing, really.
Yeah.
I'm a little wary of.
Well, I mean,
Well, I mean,
I mean,
in James Gunn, we trust. We'll see what that looks
so
like.
but I mean,
dark.
Sir Steve McQueen did 12 Years a Slave, and they've got a number of different directors they're talking about. Nobody's been signed yet. the
point is,
casting
though-
director is set.
Well, the cast is going to come first, and then director.
the
is the way they're
cast-
talking about.
As far as who the cast is, there's been a huge push for Idris Elba.
Oh yeah, that's gone
And-
back
and-
10 years.
Yeah, it has been, but he would be he'd make a wonderful Bond.
He's too
He-
old.
I was
But
gonna
he's
say
too
he's
old
too
right
He's
now.
old.
missed
That's
the
his,
window
ar-
now.
that's his argument. He says,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm flattered, but,
But-
I'm way too old." you
I
know?
mean,
Yeah.
Cavill's also
the-
been a big name lately.
the
Who is
rumored-
what?
Cavill.
Cavill.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Cavill has a
Henry
few
Cable
others.
is number one
And I
in
think
the.
he could pull it off with that rough and tumble original style. And he likes to
what's
stay
his name?
true to the source material.
Yes,
He
he
does.
does.
He's
Very
also,
big
he's
on
also
that.
British, believe it or not. You don't
Yes,
hear
he
that in
is.
his. But
Uh,
he's number one, and Aaron Taylor Johnson is number
Is number
two.
two, yeah.
And those
But
are the two
the-
main
But one
main
of the
numbers.
key things we're seeing is more information's coming out about the possible story. And,
there's been
and
discussion
one
about
of the
that, yeah.
things that everybody's talking about is doing like, well, I mean, you had Niven's Casino Royale,
Yeah.
where he's setting up for his, you've got the young Jimmy Bond kind of thing coming up. And
Oh.
granted, that was a very campy
Yeah, it was
movie.
intended.
And the animated James Bond Jr.,
Yes.
let's not us forget, in the franchise.
Well,
Yes.
believe it or not, when Craig came in, there was intention for Sean Connery to make a cameo as not Bond, but like the mentor
Yes.
with Daniel Craig. But of
hand it
course,
over.
To hand it over to actually do that.
And
And they
they're-
offered him a boatload of money, but
He'd already retired by
he'd
then.
already
They're-
retired. That's
but
right.
And he
they're-
is the one actor
That could've-
who was the most serious about retiring.
That's
Oh,
correct.
yeah.
When he retired, he didn't do another thing, I don't think.
And
They're-
he wrote a letter about the Indiana Jones saying, "Hey, I'd love to do it, but I love retirement too much. I'll see you in the theater."
Yeah.
And it
So-
was really nice.
But what they're talking about is there's going to be 2 James Bonds in the movie. It's going to be a handover to start with this new character fresh,
Is that related to a reach around?
I guess. But I mean, you're talking
Uh,
about something around the the basis.
Just hope you don't have Tyrannosaurus
Royale.
Rex arms.
Well, in other words, it's kind of a
That would
wink,
make it
shake
difficult.
to the fact that we're starting over.
Exactly.
And we recognize our history,
Uh-huh.
and we're not going to disrespect that,
No,
but we're going to move forward on that.
bring it forward, hand it off,
If,
and
if-
you've
if
already
done
had
seriously as a mentor to a mentee,
yes.
I can see that.
But you've got a serious close right now with Craig's dead.
That's
Craig's
right.
Bond is dead. There's actual
Oh,
tombstone.
spoiler!
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate
Dance
it.
Sorry.
around that.
Well, I
you
mean,
just
there's-
ruined
there's
it
a-
out there for 2 people that ain't seen it.
There's an actual tombstone on an island that you can go visit.
It's radioactive, but it's okay.
But
That's right.
no, it's not. But well, in real life, it's not. But the real tombstone and everything's still there. It's all set up.
Yeah.
So you can visit. They've got the location available for anybody who wants it. But so you've already got. If he was training somebody, a different number and what have you, 07's up now.
Yeah. Hey,
So
if they wanted to continue
if
the
they wanna do that.
continuity, I kind of prefer going back to being fresh again, Martin.
So I have 2 things. I don't think a mentor role will work for Bond.
At best, you get it at the very beginning, and that's it.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
not a long-term
Well, if he's-
storyline.
he would have to. I mean,
He's too old for one.
you have
He's
to
too
make it.
experienced.
You have to make it plausible where the mentor that's handing off. You almost need some backstory because again, Bond's a psychopath whose problems are being channeled for the good of king and country.
As are all
I think you're.
You know,
double ups.
Well, instead of a mentor, you'd almost need an onboarding specialist for the organization.
Right.
I
So
mean,
I mean, I
the
think
role
this is
of-
going to be
the
very,
role of
very,
M-
very
The
difficult.
role of M himself can be that.
Yeah.
That's
So I
not
think
unheard
this-
of, you know.
I'm optimistic for the film part. I don't think that particular aspect will end up working. But am I the only one who's pessimistic about all the rest of it?
Well,
That it's going to be a disaster to like
I think it.
water all this down, have all these.
I think it depends because it depends entirely on on 2 things. It depends on the actors they choose for the various roles. That's part of it.
Casting is
But
always
even
important.
more important is I don't care. You can have Sean Connery playing Bond forever in his prime, but if the scripts suck,
Yeah, I mean,
it's not going to
that's-
work. So you've
yeah.
got to have good writing, and the key to the good writing, because I think, and this is where things have changed, is that character is king, right?
Yeah.
People watch for the characters more so for the not necessarily more so, but just as much
Yeah.
for the story.
Which is why Diamonds and Forever actually succeeded where it should have been a shit show, because the story and the whole concept of itself is just dumb. It really is. But you got Sean Connery coming back with this old prose grace, and you've got Jill St. John, who sells her role very well.
Yes.
And that
Well,
character,
I'd watch that movie for just
well, and that
just for that.
exactly my point is that they pulled off something that should have been, if you put anybody else in that role, it would have been dumb, absolutely dumb.
one
And I
thing.
know that's Martin's favorite, but
Yeah. But I recognize the criticism of it. It is a weak story.
very much so.
It doesn't make a ton of sense.
So one of the things that you said, I think is really interesting to explore. Not just, and this is a different franchise, which I wish they would make into movies, and you're going to love this. Is that your description of Bond as the psychopath in a controlled fashion?
Yeah.
Reminds me very much of how David Weber describes Honor Harrington, especially in the later books, because she recognizes she has great capacity for evil and violence if she gives in to her baser
I
desires.
didn't know that about her.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yes.
know. I mean, you've
It-
spoken
it is
to her
a s-
many times.
It is
I've never picked up
especially
on that.
It is especially evident in the second or third book, which is this. I think it's the second book. Honor of the Queen is the second book, I think, and that's the one where they go to Grayson, and the women who were captured from one of the ships that the Havenites destroy, and they pick up the survivors, and the women are given over to the other bad guys that are against the Graysons, and they're all raped and abused and what have you. And she just about goes
Ape shit.
full on, absolutely batshit. She's going to tear everybody apart with her bare hands. And coming from a world with high gravity, she could have. And it's only due to the efforts of this young ensign, or he might have been a lieutenant. Scotty might have been a lieutenant at the time.
Lieutenant Junior grade or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I think it
Who was one of the best characters. Him along with Harkness together were some of the best pairings. But anyways, he stops her.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the first time where she realizes that she truly needs to control the monster. Maybe not the first time.
Yeah.
But that's definitely the first time where it's
Which
shown.
is always
And it's a subtle thing
it's a
throughout the series.
winning
It was
formula.
a good wake
Well,
up,
It's a
self wake
winning
up
formula.
Yes.
Of the
The
possibility
duality
that
of
could happen.
humanity. You can never go wrong with that.
Yes,
that's
and
always
she's a complex character throughout all those books, and it would be such a great movie series,
Well,
or 10-year streaming service.
I think one of the things that's out there right now is that Phoebe Waller-Bridge is going to be brought in to write this one. Now she co-wrote the last one,
right.
and so there is kind of a good point of continuation with that.
And ironically, she did a very good job of melding
she did.
mythos. Some of that stuff, and Cajun will pick up on this, is stealing still from Fleming. Even 60 years later, you're still
yeah.
stealing some stuff from Fleming that worked.
Oh, yeah.
Fleming wasn't just a time period; it was about the character more than
Yes.
anything.
Yeah,
and it was about himself when you really get down to it.
Right, but
Or how he wished to see.
Yeah,
himself.
what he
some of it
wished
was
he was
real,
like.
some of it was float up in his mind. So
but and they were able to take that and do that. So she did a fine job. Robert,
I just wanted to point out we were at 127.
all right, so let's wrap this
Wrap
down.
it up.
Need to close
Yeah,
it out.
I didn't want to derail
mean,
the conversation. Just wanted to point it out. We
So
still
to
have things say.
summarize, you guys are all optimistic, and Martin's holding his breath.
I'm
No,
I'm cautiously optimistic, but I also don't have much of a dog in this hunt.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm actually more, and I'm probably, because the whole concept is just exciting to me, I am probably more like Martin here. I'm saying I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt because I have to right now, because it's
You
a
don't
franchise.
have to.
Oh no, I'm not even there.
Well,
I'm
I want
fairly
to.
convinced this is going to be awful.
Oh man,
Nah.
I mean,
just
because
can't-
I don't think you could carry a spin-off with the adventures of Q when he's not dealing with
Well,
Bond.
So
or,
in other words,
Who
the entire
knows?
concept of a franchise,
right,
is
again,
problematic
trying to do
here.
it like Star Wars.
Yeah,
like
you're
trying to
thinking of
have
those things.
Mandalorian TV show and then a Rogue One
you're-
movie and
So
then
in other words,
Baby Yoda and
a franchise to you
Baby Moneypenny's not going
is
to work.
character centric,
Yeah.
not
Well,
universe.
Bond
centric.
is its own franchise.
It is.
It
But-
is.
But The Mandalorian, Rogue One, not so much Solo.
Mm-hmm.
those work though.
Because it's so much broader a universe. There's more.
Well, now I will
there's
grant you
more
that.
to a rebellion against the
I will grant you
Empire
that.
than
Well,
just
So that's which goes back
Luke
to my premise
Skywalker.
is
But with Bond,
you've got a
there's
world-
just Bond.
Well, I mean, we
Yeah,
still
and
we
that's
still
what
have a
I
whole
get.
world.
Well, actually, one name that we have not mentioned that could do a successful spin-off and even be closer to this country's heart, Felix.
You do a lighter.
Felix
yeah.
Leiter.
Felix
Felix
Leiter.
Leiter and the espionage from this side.
But
It's
Lighter's
basically
dead
Felix-
too, right?
He is.
Not if you're rebooting the entire.
Well, if you're
universe.
rebooting everything, but
Yeah.
Bond is dead for God's
No.
sakes.
I mean, Lighter's been brought back a couple of times.
Yeah.
Well, Leiter, and as a fan of the series from the beginning, I never liked the fact that they constantly changed the actor for Felix Leiter and made him a placeholder all the time. He had no character whatsoever
With
until
never a consistent personality
yeah.
until was it not Jeffrey Rush.
oh my gosh! See, I was counting on you to remind me
I
of the
can't
actor's
remember the
name.
fellow's name, but
Gosh, he's so
he's
good.
pretty terrific.
That's right.
He is the best actor that's ever played.
Well, he's the only
Felix
one to
Leiter.
ever give that character who the continuance that he deserves
yeah.
to be a character.
Well,
So
in
Jack
my
Lord's a
mind,
good actor,
Felix
but-
is always the U.S. opposite version of Bond.
Yeah.
And they played
And they
him,
never really went that
Not
yeah,
far.
they
perfect
played him for
anything,
comic
but
relief way too often.
Yeah,
To me, Felix had a license to kill for us if they wanted
Well,
it,
I think to be fair, when you consider that this is a British property, it may not always have been produced by the Brits, as far as the movies go. There's probably a little bit of that Big Brother / inferiority complex going on
Yeah.
with the Brits
Well,
because
Our agent's better than yours.
exactly,
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
you're-
and
you're-
Americans are just a bunch of young upstarts compared to
you're-
them.
I mean, your first
Jeffrey Wright.
your first
Jeffrey
Thank
Wright.
you.
Yeah.
your
Sorry.
first Bond production with Barry Nelson. Bond's the American. Felix is the MI6.
I know, isn't that something?
And
That's because they didn't think you could sell a British
they didn't think you
a
could,
British guy
yeah,
on an
in-
American
as
live
far
series.
as for a U.S. show.
That's right. Yeah, that's why
And
they did
it
that way.
was. I mean, I have always had a dream since with that was to do that as a play.
Oh,
That would
I
be
thought you were going to say being a sandwich between Pierce Brosnan and Sean Connery, but
No.
Okay.
No,
No, you're exactly right because it was done as a play.
it was done as a play.
essentially, yeah, a live TV performance.
Oh, here's one too, and I'm sure Martin will like this one. In the famous words of Matthew Quigley, "We done kicked the misfits out of our country."
Yeah, there you go.
Well, you're exactly right. Yeah. So
like that.
I'm optimistic only because I must be.
Again, you don't have to be.
I know.
I mean, like I said, I think
It's in your nature, though,
there's
when
a
it comes to Bond.
possibility
Exactly
the
where I'm going,
Film
yes.
will work. I'm just not sure
About
lots of spin-off properties because again, the universe is too narrow.
You
It's
do
about
run
Bond.
the risk of diluting the property that way in a way
just-
that is not
I
beneficial.
mean, yeah, I just
Well,
don't want to see
I mean, to be
Hugh
fair,
on his own.
as huge a Bond fan as I am, as far as what they do with the spin-offs, don't care. The only thing I'm concerned about is the theatrical releases.
Well, and there's some truth to that because Marvel MCU is similar to that.
Yeah.
We really want those to be great. The TV series, with a
They're-
few exceptions, have been meh.
Yeah.
I disagree.
But yeah, well,
I disagree on
well,
a few
I'm s-
exceptions. People don't like certain things, but for instance, She-Hulk.
I thought it was great. Loved it.
Yeah.
True to form to the John Byrne She-Hulk.
was.
It
It
was
was a good-
phenomenal
it was a
in
good
my opinion.
spin-off.
Ms. Marvel was true to, the
Yeah.
exception of the powers being defined a little differently. They still worked
Yeah.
the same.
Right.
I thought was an excellent show because it was true to Kamala Khan.
Well, I understand, but they've never gotten the groundswell of support, though. It's been
Iron Fist was even true to the TV series.
I
Now,
enjoy-
I'll grant you, by today's standards, that's a lot of cultural appropriation.
yeah.
But it wasn't like you had a white guy being playing somebody who's from the Far East,
The
the
IP,
Orient.
the whole character was that, and back in a time when that nobody thought of those
Right.
things.
Well, I mean, it's an if you think about it, it's the fish out of water
Yeah.
thing.
Well,
It is beautiful.
Daredevil Rebirth now. It's a nice slow burn going into.
I have
it.
not
Really
started
setting up.
yet.
and it is a really
It is
great character arc that we're seeing and how things are changing in their lives. And Kingpin in the background tying all this together over Echo and other series that we've
That's-
seen, pulling it all
That's
forward.
Marvel being smart, realizing
Yeah.
we can't just throw anything up against the
No.
wall and have it stick. But if we do it well, and Daredevil is the perfect example, it can be damn good.
Well, Daredevil was of the Netflix shows.
Was good.
It was probably the best of the mainstream versions. Jessica Jones, I thought, was the best of the show.
I like
Yeah.
Jesse Jones, and I liked Luke too.
I did too. I did too.
Iron Fist was my least favorite out of the bunch.
and that's a
I
very
mean, I
common-
enjoyed it, but
Iron Fist is just not a great. I don't just think he's an interesting character in general. I thought him and Iron Fist or Power Man together,
Heroes Fire.
was.
But-
It's such
Was a
an
good
odd
concept.
mix,
Well,
but
and
it
that's
worked
and that's
in the comics.
and I think that's why they gave Iron Fist that, is to hope that you can recapture that.
Yeah.
But it never did. But nevertheless, it's all, you know. So it's possible to do a very good spinoff or a
Oh, yeah.
very sucky spinoff, depending on how you execute.
Right. Again, I think it depends a huge ton on the world that's already been built. Again, with Marvel, as long as you're not going way off into some really obscure character, you've got so much wonderful stuff to mine from that where these characters
Yeah,
tie into
and
each
you
other.
know, some of them
and
are
integrate.
very
'Cause,
successful,
mean,
others less. so.
Marvel
Yeah.
did that stuff. I mean, they did that stuff in the '60s. Marvel team up. You know, the Thing would have like a guest.
That was the
partner,
'70s, but all right.
You know, whatever. Yeah. So that stuff all
Yeah.
worked. So you've got a universe to mine there.
But
Bond just isn't that big.
But
It
see,
just doesn't
Bond-
have
It's
that.
too shallow.
the
That's what
thing
you're
with
suggesting.
Bond is you have the advantages right now of China's making a comeback. Russia's a big baddie.
That's
You
right.
got the entirety of the Middle East that's up in arms. You got all these things to work with and work through,
Well,
along with
and
the
you-
fact
you've
of all
got-
these crazy.
Don't forget the cartels.
the cartels, but
Yeah.
you've got all these crazy theories coming off of everybody.
Yeah.
Down
yeah.
to, Elon Musk is a Nazi, so let's paint swastikas all over everything.
Well, you
which
know,
is exactly what the Nazis did.
so
Yeah,
you're
if we
sug-
see a Tesla, let's go start it on
Exactly.
fire.
So you've got all this to work with in current things, along with all the crazy stuff going on
Yeah.
in people's heads.
so you're suggesting that Bond's world is as big as our world.
it is our
Well,
world.
yes, I think
Yeah.
that's
But
always
that's
been-
and,
exactly
and that's an
it.
advantage. it has.
potentially that's
They've
always
got
been
some
true.
competition
And
to work with, though, to guide them in
Oh,
the
yeah.
in the Clancy stuff. The Jack Ryan series.
Well, Reacher.
Reacher's another one
Reacher.
too.
Well, even
Okay.
on top of that, how much of this
Gotcha.
world did the British Empire once own and still have
Exactly.
connections monetarily and everything, politically,
I mean,
running
and
deep?
screwed it up to
They're going
begin
to
with.
look at.
But they're responsible for more Independence Days than anybody else on
Well,
Earth.
you're right. And, well, you know,
And you know they still have ties into the money in
And
all
they
them
st- and
countries.
They've still got stuff.
this is nothing
But-
new for the franchise,
you've
folks.
got-
This is since Pierce Brosnan. We've
Oh, yeah.
been doing that
But you-
in
you've-
different ways. So I think, but you're right. To go back to Martin's point, that works great for the character of Bond in the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it have? I
And
mean,
can
and
you
yes,
make-
Can it?
it is a big enough canvas.
Yeah.
But do the characters? Here's where I think
Yeah,
you're going.
there's just
Yeah.
not enough
The depth of
characters.
character, I don't know, is there.
Right, Bond's
Yeah.
a loner, so he by
well, and-
definition
well,
doesn't have a team.
You
to
have
work for
you
him.
have essentially 4 other characters. You've got M, Q, Moneypenny, and Felix Leiter, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a sec, though. I mean, you can still do characters in the universe and bring them, create
Yeah.
new characters. However, I think Martin has hit on something here that is a great point as far as whether or not this can be successful. Bond himself is a movie property for this reason and this reason alone. There ain't a whole lot of there when you think about Bond.
Mhm.
Okay, he's a 1 or 2 note kind of character
Yeah.
and
famous
movie.
blunt instrument. Yes,
He's right. He's a blunt
Exactly
instrument.
what he's meant to be. Yeah.
You could. I don't think you could successfully, without some serious world building as far as his background and getting into who the person behind the 007 persona is. You could not do a limited series or a streaming series where you're telling a cohesive story over 8 or 10 episodes with Bond. I think it'd be much more difficult.
Well, you're
Well,
right.
No, you would have to focus more on the organization MI6.
Well,
That's
it's
Right,
just
you'd
not-
have to bring a lot more
There's a
stuff
presumption
into it.
that's
you
what
don't-
they're going
you
to
don't even
do.
have to base it off of the right on Bond characters. You've got the whole aspect of Spectre, which is an open an
Yeah.
open topic.
Yeah.
They could do a whole series with just Spectre and looking at it from the bad guy's perspective.
Sure,
Which would be
And
quite
that-
interesting.
That might work. Yeah.
It's like a Grendel kind of thing.
They do have options.
They have
It
lots
comes down,
of-
they,
Yeah, they have lots of-
options.
They
Which
have
is
lots
the
of
reason
options.
they paid $1 billion
But-
just for the creative rights. They,
Yeah,
they
and-
believe
but-
they have options.
Yeah, and
believe
you know,
they
you
can do
you
something with it.
really neglected to mention that. I think that's one of the most important things to mention.
Yeah.
$1 billion
Just for the creative
Oh,
rights.
no.
just
They-
for the creative rights. This is that's an unprecedented
They-
amount.
and it's
for the
correct.
creative
And
rights.
they believe the opposite of what Martin is saying.
Yeah,
That
but
it
the-
has
Well,
legs,
obviously. The
obviously.
And they want their money back.
You don't.
but-
Yeah, you don't pay $1 billion for something unless you think that you can really make an
Oh, but that's
huge
ju-
ROI.
That's just a down payment. When you look at what they've paid for the producers,
Well,
that's a heck
Oh,
of
yeah.
an
That's
investment.
just for the rights.
That's
Yeah,
just
that
for
was
the rights.
Right, that's what we
Rock
said.
Rock
It's
Rock
For
just
everything
the
else,
rights.
you're
Yeah,
probably
which essentially is
Yeah,
nothing.
but producers, right? That's part of the sunk cost of a movie
Oh,
itself.
I
mean, so
agree.
that's not. I don't think that's part of the conversation as far
But,
as
I mean, you-
what
you-
they've invested.
But you're
'cause you're going to put that money into it
probably
anyways.
looking at $3 billion before this first movie comes out.
They've not put $2 billion into producers.
No, I didn't say that. But
no,
I
but-
mean, when you talk about the writers, everything else, and
I
all the
don't-
other stuff you line up, by the time
By the
this
time
movie
he
comes
pr-
out,
actually
I-
produce one and it's in
and
theaters.
it's in
I don't
print
know,
and
there's
out,
still a
I'm
lot
saying
more money
easily,
than-
Seems high, but yes, it's
I
a
think that's
large
high.
number. There's no
easily-
doubt.
It's
Yeah.
going to be
There's
$2
gonna be
billion
big money.
with no question.
I contest that that
Well,
amount. We'll have to
th-
see.
It certainly costs a lot more to make this next
Oh, it
James
does
Bond
now,
movie
yeah.
than it would most movies coming out these days.
Exactly.
You know, just comparing apples to
And-
apples. A Marvel tentpole movie.
Well,
if you were-
Endgame was probably the most expensive
Expensive,
movie
right.
to make for Marvel,
Uh,
Yeah.
and they still made a crap ton of profit off of it.
absolutely.
Before you get to merchandising, I find it hard to believe that any Bond movie will cost more than Endgame, even
I-
even
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
6 or 8 years later.
Can't see it because
No,
you're
I don't.
exactly right. Because there's no way you're going to have all the. You're just not going to do a
that
lot
large
of that.
cast alone.
Well,
yeah, just
right.
special
I
effects. You're just not going to be that type of a thing.
Right.
They've,
So-
they've already paid for the shooting rights. That's in Qatar.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, and they've already paid for a lot of this other stuff that they've paid hundreds of millions of dollars out.
yeah.
And they're
Pretty big
they're
dough.
spending money hand over fist on this, and they're hiring the right people so far,
which don't come cheap.
which do not come cheap.
I'm sure. That's right.
All right.
So
Well, boys, I think
Good luck,
we've about
Amazon.
beat this dog today, and we ought
Oh,
to
yeah.
take a tone from Porky Pig. That's all, folks.
I
Yeah.
agree. So, Francis,
yeah.
I wanted to kick it to you. What's next, man?
all right, we're going to go code of honor.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're out here with Cajun. He has told. I'm not going to spoil it, but he has told us
Mm-hmm.
what it's going to be for the quotation that we're going to go deep with. But I'm going to save that because he's got something very special lined up through here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's tune in next episode and see where we go.
We hope you enjoyed another pointless discussion of eternal questions. Remember, new episodes drop every second and fourth Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern, just in time for your morning commute. And every fifth Friday, we drop a special Hoopajube episode. Spread the word we are on all the major platforms, and leave us a review. That helps others find us. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as our website, snakesandotters.com. Join us next time, same snake time, same otter channel.